It's kind of like my kid telling him to zip his britches, you know. I get tired of telling you after a while, just leave them up, son.
Well, that's why I wear suspenders.
Here we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the workshop for the Village of Ruidoso Council. February 2nd, Groundhog Day, and we'll start with a moment of silence, and then if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the state flag. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
All right, thank you, everyone. Mr. Santa, roll call, please.
Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Salas.
Here.
Councilor Lutterman.
Here.
Councilor Cornelius.
Here.
Councilor Coughlin.
Here.
Councilor Jackson.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and get started on our agenda items. There won't be any decisions made today, but we're going to discuss them if we need to. And move on. Item number 1 is discussion on adoption of Resolution 2021-07, a resolution of support and commitment to the funding of the 2021-2022 New Mexico Department of Transportation Co-op Funding Program. And does this come through? I didn't know if Josh is going to be doing this or if it's going to be
Josh.
Josh away.
He's having trouble getting on. He's getting on right now.
Okay.
You want to present it, Adam?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council. This is the grant funding from the Department of Transportation for the co-op funding. This one is for the 21-22, and I believe this is the Carrizo Canyon area and Evergreen and Hickory area.
Okay.
Free money, consent.
Definitely needed.
Yes.
Spring Road and Apache Trail.
Yeah, I got a different map, Adam.
Is it the Apache Trail and it's all the side roads?
Yeah.
It's showing Apache Trail, Center Street, all those.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So they're on right now. They're actually on the Carrizo Canyon. This is actually the side roads from. This is all the Carter's Park and
Yes.
like Wingfield area all the way up to Center Street. I'm sorry. So this is like the Vine, all this, basically the side roads from Hickory to Center Street on Sutter Drive.
Okay. So this one will not include Grindstone yet.
No, that will be in the next funding cycle.
Okay, awesome. All right. Any questions of Adam? Okay, well, this one will go on consent, I think is what's been suggested. All right. Item number 2, discussion on adoption of Resolution 2021-08, a resolution of support and commitment to the funding of the 2021-22 New Mexico Department of Transportation, New Mexico DOT MAP funding program. Has Josh on yet? Okay. Adam? Okay.
I was trying to send that to. Josh should be getting on right now.
Okay.
This is, let's see.
Resort Drive.
Yes, this is the 2122. This is for Grindstone and Resort Drive.
Awesome.
Now, the map showing D Street and Sutterth?
Yes, it's from the way we're going to do it is from the Sutterth from Meacham,
Yeah.
East Street to Grindstone, and then or to Resort, then Grindstone is the project.
So to Grindstone or D?
To D. Josh is actually on. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, this is from Meacham Drive on Sutterth and D Street, and then how it goes through Resort to Grindstone. That's our project targeted area.
That needs to be known.
Yeah,
Am I correct, Josh, or am I wrong?
Something's
No,
confusing me.
you're correct. Mayor, council, that whole upper part of Sutterth needs to be redone, and then D Street also. And we're actually planning on milling that upper part of Sutterth to get it all back to where it needs to be. We're gonna mill it and then come back with the 2-inch overlay.
Okay, Josh, I'm not sure I see Grindstone
I don't
on the
see it at
map.
all.
It's Resort, but not Grindstone.
Don't you mean that Resort should be Grindstone?
Resort, yes, sir, because Grindstone's gonna be this year. The phase 2 of Grindstone is gonna be this year, and then we put in for Resort, D Street, and Upper Sutterth.
Okay.
But when is Grindstone to Sutter or Wingfield? When is that scheduled?
That is actually scheduled to start in June after we complete the Carrizo.
This year?
Yes, sir.
I just didn't see it on the map.
Yeah, and we just didn't see it on the map, Josh, so we just wanted to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Josh, I got a question. From D to Resort, you actually have like a little jog onto Fifth there. Are we just gonna stop right at that intersection and then pick up again once we get through the intersection at Resort? Or are we gonna
Yes,
continue
sir.
it through?
I mean, that little intersection, it can be worked in either when we do the Resort, or we can work it in whenever we do, D Street.
Okay. Yeah, that's a weird intersection there, so I just didn't know.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Consent?
consent.
Okay, another consent. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 3 is discussion on change order number one, and acceptance of the final completion with General Hydronics Utilities LLC for IFB 2020-001 Hemlock 2 water line placement, decreasing contract amount by $41,009.67, requesting an extension of 7 working days to June 17th, 2020. And so Karen, you'll explain this one to us.
I can get this one, Mayor, if you'd like me to.
Okay, go right ahead.
Mayor, Council, this is the actual closeout for Hemlock 2. We finally got the GIS shape files, and we got everything we need to close this project out. There was a extension, or we're asking for an extension of 7 working days due to inclement weather during this project, and the decrease of the contract amount of $41,009.67.
Change order Tim will like.
Well, so the question, well, maybe.
Maybe.
Question is, why is there a decrease?
Mayor Crawford, Councilor Coughlin, the decrease was, there was a couple little things that didn't cost it so much, but the main thing was the rock excavation in this project. The bid was for I can't remember exactly, it was 100 linear feet of rock excavation, and they only used like 10 feet of rock excavation on this.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't dropping anything that we're just not gonna do.
No, sir.
No.
Okay. And then in the actual change order, it says the decrease is 37,818.72. In the agenda memo, it's 41,000. Is the difference because of GRT?
Karen would have to.
Yes, sir, that is correct, Councilor Coughlin. It's, GRT is included. We've been trying to state in our agenda memos everything to include tax because that is part of the budget. So just to keep things clean on the finance side, we'd like to include tax on everything.
So if we're keeping it clean in the budget and on the contract side, does the contract originally include GRT? Shouldn't that GRT be included in the decrease or increase on the change orders?
Yes, sir, it is included in the contract, and then it's when a change order comes to council or a decrease comes to council, it should also include GRT. Normally, we add that to the dollar amount. We either stipulate whether it includes or excludes tax. So in this case, we didn't do that. We needed to say that it includes GRT.
Okay, because the actual change order and what we're getting in the agenda memo are different. So that's where I'm saying that those should be the same, whether they're including or not including GRT. Correct?
Yes, sir, you're correct. You are correct. They should be the same. We'll make those changes.
Okay, I think that because in the change order, the original contract price that's listed does not include, that's not the same contract price that's on the agenda memo, so maybe that's not including GRT.
Exactly. Yes, that you are correct. It didn't stipulate GRT. And
Okay.
Courtney's here letting me know that Mosen hasn't been including GRT on their change orders. So we'll make those proper changes to correlate with the actual contract so it doesn't confuse anybody. Because it is confusing whether or not it includes our GRT or not.
Right, and can we try to make sure that in the future, the change orders are consistent that way?
Yes, sir, we will.
Okay, thank you.
So what are you saying, that changing the contract price is going to be the final amount, or the one that's the 41,000 with the GRT included?
Well, the contract, the way we book it has GRT. It's just the actual contract that you see before you did not have the price including GRT. So what we need to do, like Council Coughlin was referencing, we need to make sure that our documents coincide with each other. If they're going to include GRT on the actual presentation of the contract, then everything needs to include GRT.
Okay.
So we'll make sure that moving forward, when we present on contracts or change orders or anything, that we're reflecting the same, whether it includes GRT.
Well, I'd like to just see GRT included in everything because those are dollars that we still have to pay out. Otherwise,
Right.
otherwise it's kind of offsetting there.
Right, and Judy has expressed that we need to be consistent and always include GRT because it has to be a part of the budget.
Right.
Okay, you want it consent or regular?
I would like it on regular, Mayor, so that we could boast about this project and it also being GO bond money or voters approved, so that way at least we discuss it. And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, that will be regular item. Number 4 is discussion on change order. Number 4, in acceptance of the final completion with Cherokee Enterprises, Inc. for IFB number 2020-002B Alto 2 Well H 1979-S7 improvements, decreasing contract amount by $34,308.16 to a total of $457,107.51, excluding gross receipts tax. Is this you, Mr. Boyda, or is Karen going to handle it?
Yes. Mayor Crawford, councilors, I'm Eric Voida, the Water Resource Director. So this is similar to Adam's agenda item. It's just a final balancing change order for the project. So we finished the Alto 2 well. There was residual funds that were available for the washover of the well, and then some of the testing allowances. So this is bringing the total contract amount down by the $34,000
Okay,
Plus GRT.
plus GRT. Yes.
See the inconsistency? The last one included GRT, this one doesn't include GRT. We just need to get consistent on everything.
and we discussed this before.
Yep, I know for a while there, all contracts and all proposals that came to us included GRT, and then we kind of dropped off on some of them.
So we'll make sure in the future, please include GRT in all the contracts. Okay, and this one was the SGRT funding. So do you want to have this one on regular too?
Yes.
Yeah, I prefer.
Okay. Item number 5 is discussion on fire apparatus purchase of a Type 3 engine through the New Mexico State Pricing Agreement using New Mexico State Fire Funds. And go ahead, Chief Cody Thetford.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor and Council. We had a demo. The mayor and Councilor Letterman showed up on Friday to see the actual truck that we're trying to spec and possibly purchase. Jeff Wood from Firefighter Trucks came to Ruidoso yesterday and met with me for about 6 hours on the final spec and review of the truck. He is working on those numbers now. We're hoping to have something back tomorrow or the next day before the council meeting. But the contracts and state agreements, the fire fund, and working with Judy, everything seems to be in place. We're just waiting on a quote to come back to present to y'all for approval.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting us. That was very interesting.
Did you get to use it on the fire you had later that afternoon?
No, unfortunately, he left a couple hours before that fire started.
That'd have been a good one. So you
Yes,
spec'd out the 750 gallons, and what additional over that one?
The 700 gallons, the 1500 GPM pump, and then there was just some lighting and safety stuff for NFPA, the SCBA packs, some rear view cameras, just a few things like that that he had to spec in there for New Mexico as far as the NFPA, and he was going to make those changes and then let us know where we landed.
So the transmission and everything in it, y'all ran it up and down the hills and everything was good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you just matched the specs on that one?
We liked it.
Yeah, and it will fit in our Fire Station 3. So we won't
Yes,
have a snafu like the county did. All right, anything else?
I thought when Harlan was chief, his last request, he said he was good for 15 years and wasn't going to need any more equipment.
But he retired.
That was about 11 and a half years ago, so I think he was a little off on his numbers.
No, I'm giving you a hard time.
What?
But with the lead time, you got almost a year anyways.
Yeah, and
Yes, sir.
we still have a long time to pay off on those other ones. Remember that snafu?
And let's not talk about that.
So you got to talk about your losses as well as your victories to learn anything there.
But this truck was four-wheel drive, and
Yeah.
it was a nice truck.
Okay, so do we want this one on
Regular.
regular?
Let's
Okay.
boast about it.
Okay. Regulari.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 6 is discussion on award of RFP number 2021-004P to Sites Southwest LLC for property zoning codes, Chapter 54, evaluation and rewrite. Samantha?
Mr. Mayor, this is John Commander,
Okay.
purchasing agent. Good morning, Mayor, members of the council. We issued this request for proposals in order to solicit a firm to assist us in evaluating and rewriting our Chapter 54 property zoning codes. We received 2 very good proposals, one from Consensus Planning Incorporated and one from Sites Southwest LLC. And after evaluating and discussing, all members of the evaluation committee were unanimous in selecting Site Southwest LLC to assist us with this project. And I'll stand for any questions.
I think that's probably one of the closest scorings that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Wow.
Mayor, I get, my question would be towards Samantha,
Okay.
because this was something, after we discussed this earlier, of course, in the first, or on page 3 of the evaluation or the committee's report, it talks about meet with village staff and elected officials to discuss their issues and concerns with the existing code and areas. And John could nominate me back, but I would nominate John to be the spearhead as far as from our committee. But I'd also like to see if Samantha would invite any of the P&Z members, or at least 1 or 2, to be along with that process, to work in with staff. Because I know they get the brunt of it when the developers come up and visit with them. So I don't know how many meetings, John, that this company might have.
But I think maybe Bill Powers.
Well, I agree, Bill Powers be in there.
Staff's gonna be there.
If we're gonna have elected officials, I know I'll mess it all up if I sit in that one. We'll be building tree houses and stuff. Anyway, that's just a suggestion, John. I really admire your expertise in this field, and you've been on the P&Z board, and this has been a long time waiting to come. That's all I have, man.
Okay. Do we want this one on regular or consent?
I would say regular, along with the follow-up item. Kind of lets the public know that we're looking at redoing all those codes and we're moving forward with it.
Okay. Any other comments? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7. Discussion on contracts for goods and services with Site Southwest LLC for RFP number 2021-004P for property zoning codes, chapter 54, evaluation rewrite in the amount of $99,999, including gross receipts tax. So I think that'll work out pretty good. So Samantha's issue or John?
It's John with procurement.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is just for approval of the contract with Site Southwest for this RFP. And they did submit a pricing proposal, which had $99,999, including gross receipts tax.
Okay, and we'll put this on regular E2.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
when we went through our strategic planning for new contracts, it was suggested by Zach that any new contracts that we anticipate signing or going on board with, that he review first. Is that in that process? Because I didn't catch it in here.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Mayor Council, I could not hear.
He said he was asking Zach, one of his recommendations during the strategic planning was to let him legal review all contracts. And has Zach reviewed this contract, John?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, no, this was not reviewed. It is just our standard contract that we always use, but I did not have Zach review it.
With respect, I think that was the whole point of his bringing that forward. And with no disrespect to you, John, but It's better, I'm told, by attorneys to go in with your eyes wide open than try to clean up an issue on the backside. And so even though...
Hold on. Go ahead and finish, please.
So in that regard, I was just saying, if we're going to keep that idea in mind and follow his recommendation, that we have that in process as we go forward, whether it's this contract or any contract. And even the renewals sometimes have me concerned, because remember the one where we had 7 iterations of one contract? And that's what all I need to say about it.
Mayor, I believe that this is the standard contract that Zach has reviewed, but we'll have him review this one specifically. And then, Ron, through the agenda request process, on all agenda requests, we should have Zach sign off for legal sufficiency.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and then you'll get it to me. Is that what you were going to say, Judy?
Yes, Mayor, councilors, before we even put this contract template into place, Zach had reviewed it.
Okay. We need to make sure that when those hit my desk, Ron, that it's got some sort of initial by Zach or something, that he's looked at it, so we'll know for sure.
Sure will, Mayor.
Thank you. I know it just adds another ripple for you. You love ripples. Okay, now we're down to the portion of the programming where we get to go to the strategic planning presentation on tactical plans by the community service. And I know the tactical people were asking me what we mean by tactical. And so since Tim comes up with some unique ideas on cocktail of funding, tactical, whatever, I thought I'd let him give a brief definition of tactical for us. We're not giving them guns or weapons training, so.
Rodney, if you could come in here and present from in here. But Mayor, Samantha went over the planning process, and, before the sessions, it was actually Councilor Kaufman visited me and said, hey, Tim, you talking about improvement plans, and this process is used for personal actions and whatnot, so can we come up with a different name? So I gave that to the committee, and so the review committee actually came up with a tactical plan. So the strategic plan gets into a tactical operational plan per department, and that's going to be their tactic on how they're going to be approaching the next year and the operations within their department. So
I'd like if you do it like a little flow chart or a planning tree.
Yeah, we have that.
Comprehensive, master, strategic, tactical.
We have that, Mayor. We presented it as part of the strategic planning.
Oh, did you?
Yes, Samantha section. So what we'll do is right now we're compiling all this information as it comes forward. And if there's changes to any of the tactical plans that are presented by the directors, if the governing bodies have additions or deletions to that, we're making those changes. And then in March, we're going to bring back that whole strategic planning document to the governing body for adoption.
Okay.
And it'll have an explanation of the planning processes, and then it'll get into, those 7 different goals that Eric covered. Will be all covered in that one document.
Awesome. And then we're going to get you all a patch that says I survived strategic planning 2020. Or I graduated from 2020.
Yeah. No, improvement plan to me, and I mentioned it to Tim, it just sounded like that's something you do kind of like a disciplinary action with an employee.
Right.
To get them to improve because they're not meeting their requirements. And it's not that our departments are doing anything wrong, but that's the implication that it meant to me. So it's like, instead of that, how are we going to, and we also talked about continual quality improvement. And tactical plan is what Tim came up with and made sense.
Sounds good. Okay, Rod.
So we still have, I think, 4 different categories to review for the Parks Department. Do you have a preference of which one you'd like to go first?
Nope, I forgot my book, so.
Okay.
We left off with Bernadine not wanting to do the presentation, so we'll pick up with Bernadine not wanting to do the presentation for the convention center. It's early in the morning, Bernadine.
Okay, so our first goal is a goal that we always have with the convention center. Of course, it's to bring more A-type events to the convention center, which are associations and multi-day events that use the entire facility and also use our AV equipment. Also fill hotels and eat at local restaurants and whatnot. Of course, the last event that we had was March 9th of 2020. And we had a new director of sales start at that time. And so he hasn't really had a chance to go after these types of groups because of COVID. So once we do get to start having events come to the convention center, I'll be working closely with him on trying to get back some groups that have been here in the past and also going after new groups as well.
And just as some additional progress that we made through the year, we did have several meetings with the tourism department, the sales from the MCM and village staff to review and talk about past practices and the way we wanted to move forward for the future as well.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, you know, one of the things I want to start proposing is looking at some of these facilities and proposing it to the Governor's Council to get some of these things reopened. You know, yesterday we had a meeting with Department of Health. The Department of Health is sending a COVID van to take over the COVID testing, and that's going to alleviate some of the things that are happening on our side. In addition to that, you know, there was a $200 and some million bill passed to increase the rapid tests and the availability of rapid tests. One of the concepts that I brought up yesterday is that as we start to reopen and transition in, I think a strategy that we need to start taking is that, you know, if people are willing to take a rapid test, then why shouldn't they be able to go into restaurants and different facilities like that? It's the same thing with the convention center. If we're going to have an event, let's say, okay, you know, let us have an event and we'll have our people tests that are coming into this event. And, you know, whether it's a convention or whatever it is, but we need to start thinking strategically on how we're going to continue to, you know, press that issue of getting these facilities open back up and how we can mitigate the spread. But at some point in time, we need to start thinking ahead on this.
I think that's a good point.
Mr. Mayor, Tim, also at some point, I think they should be able to show cards that they've already had vaccination. And that way it obviates the fact that they have to be retested when they don't need to be. And I've encouraged people to take a picture of that card and just put it in their phone, you know, so that they have it for ready reference. I see that day coming with air travel and other travel as well, because the rapid testing is tenuous at best, especially if you're looking at a 72-hour window.
Mayor, Councilor, you know, I totally agree. You know, and I think it could be a combination of you know, having a card that shows that you've been vaccinated, and then for people that haven't, doing a rapid test before they enter an event. You know, and if we could start thinking like that and create a common practice, then I think, you know, I think that's where it's headed eventually. And so, you know, I did talk to Phoebe about that yesterday, and she said, well, we brought that back up in early June, but, you know, I think it may be a time to rehash that idea of looking at some of these openings and seeing what we can do to, you know, use those two tools that have been put out there and start utilizing more and more the rapid tests and other tests. The one that they talked about last night, and I saw it on the news again this morning, the accuracy is actually, not the accuracy, but the percentage of sensitivity rate has increased, so.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, and then the second is just to promote all tourist-related information at the convention center. We did get the new what's it called, Rodney?
A digital kiosk.
Thank you, the kiosk, but it wasn't out for very long before we had to close. So I think that that would be great information for people to use, so. And then, of course, we have rack cards, and we try to give out, the chamber puts together welcome bags for all of the participants that come to the convention center that has visitor guide and restaurant guides and whatnot, and things to do in town, so. And the next, and I think Rodney wanted to elaborate on this a little bit, was at the place we were last year, we were looking at possibly needing another tech, because these guys work a lot of overtime. It's a lot of turnaround for some of these events. And I think Rodney had an idea of what he might want to do for future, so.
So, I hope we get up back to the level where we're, wanting additional staff. As you all are aware, the techs have been reassigned to assist the Parks Department with custodial services. Jeff's performing the IT services and meeting support. And we're also have a vacancy in the manager position. And during the budget process, I would like to propose some small changes. In the Parks Department, I had contemplated retiring and working on a succession plan. We previously had conversations about possibly combining the convention center manager position with assistant director for parks. And so I would like to rethink that and possibly realign a couple of the positions between the Parks Department and the Convention Center. We have very highly qualified and staff that has a lot of experience. To me, the couple times that I've managed or been the director over this department, the reason it's run so smooth is not because of me, it's because of the staff that we have here. And so, I would like to look at possibly creating or giving the office manager a little more responsibility. That would, in turn, it would take some of that away from the manager position, which would allow them to perform as an assistant director for the Parks Department. I really think, again, the staff is qualified. Combining those positions, the funding is there for that convention center manager position. And the way that we have been planning moving forward with events, not only at the convention center, but in the Parks Department, collaborating with our tourism department, it's all related. They're all related. And so I think it would, create some continuity among the departments and have a closer relationship. So again, those are some things that I would like to consider. Another example is Jeff has been performing these IT and meeting services, support services, and I'm not sure how we're exactly going to move forward with that. If there's going to remain a need for those services in the village, if that position, I just don't know. Those are some things that we need to consider if we're going to move forward and open back up.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
When we start to consider that, I think one of the things that's important is our IT department with Judy and her group also weigh into that, because I know now that Jeff has been on, there's been a lot of alleviation of the services that were provided by Systems MD as well. So we need to evaluate that. In my opinion, Jeff has been, a valuable asset to use in the village-wide, and taking care of some of our IT needs immediately. So, I'd ask Rodney to make sure he consults with the IT department and you guys come up with a plan to address that, working together.
I have a question.
Shoot.
So Rodney, who is your assistant manager at Parks and Rec?
So we have all the years that we've worked here, we only had one assistant director through all that time. and you're looking at them. So it really hasn't been a position that's been filled. Again, I think with the experience that we've been lucky to have, in a sense, it wasn't really needed. I mean, we have a really good park maintenance supervisor. We have a great community center manager, a great office manager here at the convention center. So it wasn't really a need. But when you talk about, and I think y'all are aware of that, when you talk about all this experience leaving, and I mean, you're talking, a lot of our employees are 20 plus years with the park supervisor, with the parks director, with the office manager. And so, the goal is to try to fill that position and allow them time to grow in that position, and we'll have a seamless transition. And that's actually how it helped me move into the position that I am today whenever I took that on.
So I have a question for Tim, I guess. I'm looking at Parks and Rec's org chart in here, and I didn't see where we transferred back the convention center to Parks and Rec. Is that how it is, or is this temporary, or? Because actually I forgot who the convention center reported to when Dallas was here. I think to Samantha, wasn't it, or to Samantha?
Mayor, Counselor, when I was in community development, Debbie moved the convention center under myself, and then Samantha managed it. When I asked Rodney to stay on with the intent of looking at reevaluating that and coming up with a strategy of looking at, who's going to end up replacing him long-term. We moved it back under him. And just with a lot of the other things that were going on with events and things of that nature, it made more sense to move it back under him. So on this, and I think we had talked about it on the organizational chart, we needed to amend that and get that included in under his department.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize, it's not in your packet, but we did make that change and send it over to Sam.
Mayor, the org chart on the screen is his updated version that he sent over.
And we'll include that org chart in the strategic plan when we request adoption or recommend adoption of it.
Maybe I can read it.
Are there any other questions regarding that strategic plan item?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then, okay, so then the next one, this is actually something that Dallas and I had discussed before he left that we didn't get to put into play, but he was considering requesting $100,000 a year from lodgers tax to help subsidize the convention center to put back into the general fund. He kind of came up with it on his own. We talked about it. I think it's a good idea, but of course that would be up to lodgers tax. So I don't know what you all think about it.
What would it be used for, the 100,000?
Just to help subsidize, because the general fund subsidizes a convention center quite a bit.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think the thinking was at the time that it was an eligible expense from lodgers tax. And so instead of depending on the general fund, we could utilize the lodgers tax.
Right.
So just a ballpark, what are revenues versus expenses for the convention center? Does anybody know?
I don't have that information with me. I'm
It's a
sorry.
loss leader.
How big of a loss?
Just like the rest of the time, I mean, we've looked at trying to make it a profit center, but it doesn't work that way. Never will. You're not gonna, to be competitive, this is what you get into. There for a while, we were losing conventions to Taos, to Santa Fe, to other places because they were more affordable. And so to get competitive, now this has been 4 or 5 years ago, but we can certainly do an evaluation of finding out what it is. But when you talk about the upkeep and all that, it's not going to be a profit center.
Unless we could have this thing booked like every day.
Yeah, and it's I mean, they ran it where it's booked almost every weekend. It's the turnaround times and the staff that you have to be able to, when an event's over at noon and they pick up at 4, you gotta have the people to move and.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to deal with the scheduling, but I was just curious, I mean, is it like $100,000 difference, $250,000 difference?
I don't have a clue.
Mayor, is Judy on?
The profit,
I'm getting it right now. If you can bear with me just a bit.
while she's getting that.
Go right ahead.
I think the profits of this are all indirect
Right.
Right.
to gross receipts and people up here, so I don't think it's one that we'll ever see a profit on directly.
Because I know that was one the previous director was looking at, was trying to see if we could make it a profit center, what it would take, and where we saw the benefit was to the community and indirect money spent, just like what John said.
And that's related to one of our earlier goals, is to try to attract those preferred groups that have extended stays instead of having the one night or single day events, to help to get closer to achieving that goal.
Yes, sir.
Can we move on to the next item and Judy can inform us as soon as she gets that information?
Yeah, I guess so. Go right ahead.
Okay, and then the last one, of course, is just to continue to maintain the convention center, to try and get these A groups here. And we have done quite a few renovations to the convention center, with the latest one being the restrooms. It was completed in January of 2020. And Rodney has, and I listed some of the other things that probably still need to be done, just because it's an older building. I mean, it's almost 29 years old. So we do still have a few things to get done, but the majority of our things have definitely already been done. And people love to come to Ruidoso, not just for the convention center, but just for the town itself, so.
So that there's a list of, again, a bunch of smaller items that we'll work on requesting funds for, and we'll prioritize the list, and again, we'll proceed through the budget process, making those requests.
Okay. Anything else?
That was the last strategic plan item,
Okay.
tactical plan.
For the convention center?
Yes, for the convention center. I can move on to the
Go ahead
parks
and
if
move
you
on,
wish.
I guess.
Okay. On page 126 is the beginning of the Parks Department.
Mayor, it looks like Judy's ready.
Okay.
So at the end of last fiscal year, the revenues that they brought in were 100,000, and expenses out were like 400,000. So it looks like there was a loss last year of 300,000. And this year, it looks like we're budgeted for 70,000 in revenues, and expenses are at 300.
Mayor, Judy, when you say last year, what year are you talking about?
Fiscal year 2020.
Yeah, and that's not a good year to really get numbers from.
Judy, you're probably better off looking at 2019.
Where are you finding that at? This was last year's strategic plan that Ron sent in an email.
This isn't the one we're doing now.
No, that's good. I just saw Rifle had it up and I was wondering where
I
he
just
found
want
it.
to make sure Rod's doing his job from last year. There's evaluation coming up and
Did you want my book, Mayor?
No,
Because I have it up on wall,
no, that's okay. How did you get it up?
on the agenda.
Uh-huh. It's on your agenda?
It's on the last workshop.
Because I
I
can't
didn't
get,
see it on that one.
I can't get
just
mine
got
to-
the notice.
can't get mine to come up and
Notice of the town hall meeting and then the strategic planning.
then also the meeting today's not on my calendar, so I don't know what happened there. But go ahead. Do we have something else, Rod, you want to go on to while she's looking? Do you find it?
Yep, so, the year before, revenues were at 227,000. And expenditures were at 421 for a loss of 190,000.
Okay.
So we got a $200,000 hole.
But I think in 2019, we also adjusted rates, didn't we?
Yeah, I believe we did.
Yeah.
And that was when we were having trouble renting a lot of the equipment because we were overpriced because the technology, the prices had come down and we were.
Right. We had some events that were, I forget the term, but they were grandfathered in, but they weren't using it.
And then they made that smoking deal with the Sheriff's Association. Woo! Stink Steve and all. Anything else on this portion, or do you want to go ahead and move on, Rod?
Okay. So again, the first strategic plan item or tactical plan item, sorry, is on page 127. So our goals is quality parks and recreation opportunities available for Ruidoso residents and visitors. Last year, we had one of the action items out of the comp plan was develop a grindstone recreation area master plan. And so progress during the year is we initiated that master plan process. The Groundwork Studios performed that plan. They had a couple of public meetings. They had several on-site visits to gather current conditions. And we had a couple public meetings that were delayed, so the governing body extended the final date till February 28th. So we'll be expecting the completed plan at that time. Currently, staff is reviewing some preliminary recommendations from Groundwork Studios, but we expect to have the plan on time. Moving forward for the next fiscal year, we plan to keep working on this plan and expand it to other master plans in areas in the village. And so one of the I believe the priority of next master plan should be the Wingfield Park Master Plan. I had previously requested funding to perform that plan earlier in the year to lodger's tax, but with the numbers being down, they tabled the item. I've requested to place that funding request on the agenda again at the next lodger's tax meeting. And so, if and when these plans are, funded, we'll start on those processes as well. We have since acquired a couple pieces of property, and the governing body adopted the resolution for trying to acquire open space and for athletic fields, and so one of the potential task orders is the White Mountain Recreation Master Plan, and so. Again, we'll be requesting funding for these plans, and if they're funded, we'll move forward through the process. Do you all have any questions regarding any of those master plans or that tactical plan item?
On the White Mountain, because if memory serves me, when I left the school board in 15, they had just we had just redid their their 5-year facility master plan. And I remember there was discussion of improvement of fields and stuff like that. So I guess what I'm suggesting, Rod, maybe look, they might be redoing it now as we speak. I don't know. I haven't been in contact with them on that part to see if it can coincide with what we're doing or wanting to do, and if they have any future plans of changing up those fields.
I agree. The thing that I really value about the process is that we try to include all the interested parties when we are developing the plan.
Right.
I'm not certain of where they are on their plan either, so I will follow up with the schools and let them know of our desired plan to move forward with that, and we would like them to be included as well.
That would be good.
What happened to the meetings that we used to have between the village and the school district, like quarterly meetings?
They dropped off, but I think that's a point that we should bring up, because there's some common issues, especially that are arising now, and I'm sure that they'll continue to be a matter of discussion, like the horses.
Right.
I know that I had a call yesterday from the schools inquiring about, what the village plans were. So I did, mention that the governing body approved that resolution. I had done some, just from hearing y'all's conversations, I had done some, requested a quote for fence. I shared that with them. Just as a matter of courtesy, I said we didn't have any plans moving forward at that time regarding the fence, but from what I understand, that is something that the school board would like to consider at their next meeting, so.
Well, and that's unfortunately, since we don't have any local representation with our newspaper anymore, what happens at the school board meetings, we don't hear about it. So we have no clue what's going on there. And I think it would be good to get that meeting going again, that collaboration between the two of us, because, that serves both the residents, both the students, both, a whole bunch of different people. And we both have some joint concerns and some joint ideas for that area. And I think we need to get that communications going again.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments regarding that item?
Nope.
The next strategic or tactical plan item, is, again, quality parks and recreation opportunities are available for Ruidoso residents and visitors. So again, last fiscal year, one of the action items taken out of the comprehensive plan was continue to research outdoor recreation opportunities that could benefit tourism. And so progress that was made this last year, we hosted a number of events and that were actually tied directly to outdoor recreation, because really that was one of the only items that were permitted. We did host a series of archery contests. As you all know, we had the haunted Halloween drive-through, the walk-through in Wingfield Park. We had started some initial plans, for farmers markets and trying to utilize the Wingfield Park. Of course, none of that materialized. One of additional outdoor opportunity that that the governing body moved forward on was the expansion of the Eagle Creek Sports Complex in the Ruidoso Winter Park. And so, in regards to that, Mr. Dorgan has proceeded with his plans. I think the goal is to have the mountain coaster in operation in the fall of this year, around September or October. The summer tubing, the goal is to have that in operation by May, and as well as the zip lines. One other item related to that I would like to have performed is bring in, again, like Groundwork Studios to perform a conceptual plan and put all that on paper, because the things that it is going to impact are the amount of traffic into that area. As you all may or may not know, when the tournaments were there already, there was a substantial amount of traffic. And if we're going to have people, a joint venture at that time, we're really going to have to look at the traffic and the flow of how that's going to operate. So I would like to work with, and I already have a proposal for that, with Groundwork Studios to put that all down on paper and then figure out how to do that very thing, is manage the amount of traffic coming in and out.
Yeah, because I worry a lot about this, which I think the summer, all of that is wonderful, but people are parking on all three of those fields, aren't they?
Yes.
And so how are we going to have baseball tournaments with everything else going on, which is all wonderful, but I worry about that.
Right. And I have those concerns, so I think it's important to evaluate that beforehand.
Yeah.
So we have that information. And the parking on the fields is just temporary, just for winter months.
Right.
It would create too much damage during the summer. And so at the close of the season, we rehab those fields and get them ready again for tournaments. But I'm not interested in allowing parking during the summer, just because the fields are saturated and it causes compaction and rutting and I believe the thought is that you're going to share a lot of customers. I mean, you're going to bring in people who are not specifically playing those tournaments, but especially the youth tournaments and even the adult, when they bring their family, they're going to have shared customers. But it is going to be an increase, so we need to have a plan. So there is and there isn't. And so in my discussions with Mr. Dorgan is one of the reasons behind him generating the amount of revenue that he does is because he physically parks each car. He doesn't let them come in and park on their own. And so that's the difference of how tournaments are operated. People come and go so often. I mean, every hour you're changing participants. And so that's not really managed in that depth that it's managed for Winter Park. So if we were to incorporate some type of either, we've already contemplated striping the parking lot, similar to the way we do Alto Lake. If we have a gravel surface parking lot, at Alto, we chalk the parking lot, and it creates so much more efficiency in parking. You don't have people double parking, blocking people in. And, at a minimum, that's something that we're going to consider, and then possibly having a dedicated person to just monitor how people are parking and try to minimize the double parking. So again, what I was saying is, in the Winter Park, when he runs it, he has ample parking. But in the summer, when it's tournaments, it's not organized. Yes. If they're in a hurry, they park literally wherever they want. And so it's going to be important when we move forward to have a plan and implement that plan in order to maximize the parking. And so for, moving forward for this next fiscal year regarding that item, we'll continue to work towards, developing the Ruidoso Winter Park with Mr. Dorgan. He'll be adding the winter aspects in next winter. We will apply for grants as they become available through the Outdoor Equity Fund with the state. Also, I have uploaded a bunch of, numerous potential outdoor recreation projects to the Land and Water Conservation Fund website. Once you've entered them, they evaluate them to see if they're meet the criteria for that funding, which that was a fully funded this past year. And so the hope is that some of those projects are identified and awarded for funding either through the state or through that Land and Water Conservation Fund. And then as we open up, we'll again, one of our goals are to move forward with those, utilizing Wingfield Park and creating events in that park. Are there any questions regarding that item? I'll move on to tactical plan item number 3. Again, it's another one of the same quality parks and recreation opportunities available for residents. This past fiscal year, the action item was to improve and update recreation infrastructure in all existing parks. Progress that was made during that fiscal year, of course, we had the Parks Commission evaluate potential projects, submit them for recommendation to the governing body. With the budget issues that we had, a few of their projects were funded, which were the shades in Kids Connection. Those were completed and installed. The restrooms that were funded by the council direction were also funded, and they're in the design process. We requested funding throughout the year, especially during the budget process, for a bunch of different items. Y'all recall the ice rink splash pad. And so we tried to get these projects funded, but, probably for planning purpose and other reasons, they were not funded. We did work towards funding the design of the beach with the watershed funds that were generated from the grindstone operations. We moved forward with purchasing of the materials through the parks revenue and that was generated through the grindstone operations. The beach should be completed by the end of the month. They're just lacking the top cap on the lower retaining wall and the handrail, and then the fine sand will be delivered at that point as well. Another item that we moved forward on was the acquisition of the Brophy property, and so we've already initiated that conceptual plan process with Groundwork Studios. We had an initial meeting last week to discuss potential improvements to that area. I've also been in contact with the Department of Game and Fish to also provide input for that, because we would like for it to be a kids pond. And so we don't necessarily have to 100% rely on their stocking of that, because we can implement a supplemental stocking. But I did request that they place that on their stocking program. And that they also contribute towards that project. Unfortunately, the way they develop their rules that go into their publications, their publication is out for this year. So the information may not necessarily be in their publication, or at least their printed publication, but it could be added to their digital. But we're working forward with them for their, again, input and support on that project.
Can I ask you a question? It was asking me, how do you control the pond for the children to catch fish? Are they going to get to take them home, or is it a catch and release?
I've never really been a part of one. I think that's a type of information that we should evaluate, not only with us locally, but with the Department of Game and Fish as well. Personally, I think there's nothing better that makes your day, especially for a kid, if you caught a 24-inch rainbow. And I think
how are you going to keep the older guys out of there?
So whenever the rules, when we can get the Game and Fish to recognize that it's a kid-only pond, those type of rules and regulation, it will be adopted by them, and then it'll be enforced by them.
Mayor Crawford, Rodney, we actually had a lake that was designated as it was a kid and senior citizen pond. And so they actually made it available. That classification lake was made available to the senior citizens as well. And then just the same guidelines apply of how many fish they could catch and take home and whatnot. And the game and fish officers are the ones that control and make sure that, people that aren't of those two populations aren't out there fishing, so.
Because I know we have several places around that you go to and you pay by the inch or whatever, and I know I fell into that and spent a couple $100 one day, not intending to. But I just see people abusing, that's what people do. And I just want to make sure that we get to use it for the intended purpose and that we have it well signed and the rules explained, and because the kids will have to have grandpa or grandma or somebody down there with them, and
Yep.
just don't want everybody to catch their limit right down there in an hour sitting, and then the next people, there's nothing there.
Yeah, and so there is a classification of that kind of lake, and the stocking agreements that they give you explains the rules and how they manage it and whatnot.
So they will actually come physically and walk around the lake, talk to people.
Yes, and if Game and Fish stocks it, and then, we actually enter into a stocking agreement. So when we designate that lake, that stocking agreement will identify that type of information.
Okay.
Right now, they currently monitor our other lakes that they stock in as well. So,
But they're just checking for licensing, but
Yes.
they're not enforcing if we establish an ordinance, they won't have jurisdiction to enforce that.
if it's designated,
They give them a citation, hey, you're fishing in the kids' pond. I mean, how does that work?
if it's designated as that classification of a lake, they will enforce as well.
Okay.
Could we do a double duty and come up with an ordinance, and then that way we have enforcement as well? Because there's only a couple of game and fish guys, and during hunting season, they're busy doing other stuff.
And I've never seen one at Grindstone. I mean, I know I'm not down there all the time, but I go down there pretty regular. I've never seen a fishing game truck.
Yeah, they got a big area that they cover.
They do have a big area, and I see them because I'm around there more often. I think, the signage, and of course, there are people who try to get away with it, but when we have the adequate signage and the correct type of signage around that lake, and we have the presence as we develop the building there, hopefully it keeps that to a minimum, but you always have people that are trying to. One of the aspects that I want to, as we put out a request for proposal for operation of that, I want to ensure that they have on-site license sales. And I think that will also help to minimize those type of issues.
And you can deputize Slaymeyer. He's out there.
He might be interested.
Mayor, Councilor Coughlin, I don't think anything prohibits us from passing a local ordinance that gives us, because we do some of our own stocking as well. But they're, as long as we meet their minimum stocking requirements or management requirements on those type of classes of lakes, I think we would be okay on that.
Okay.
So, furthermore, as the Grindstone Master Plan is presented, we'll be using those recommendations to guide our funding requests moving forward as well.
On that note, do we have another public hearing coming up for Grindstone? Did that already happen?
I believe all the public hearings or the meetings were completed. The next meeting would be, I believe, if y'all would like a tentative review of the plan, we could schedule that, but it'll probably be a presented plan to the governing body.
Okay. For some reason, I thought we extended time for having another public hearing last month or something like that. I didn't know. But okay.
Are there any questions regarding that item? So item number 4 was Ruidoso's recreational trail network is unparalleled across the state. Some some action items that were included was incorporate pathways and sidewalks into Village of Ruidoso's design standards. We didn't move forward towards applying them to standards, but we did move forward with projects that help towards providing the paved pathways. And so we have 3 ongoing projects that are either under design or in the process of being bid. The Moon Mountain trails are currently in design. We should have a 30 to 60% design completed of that this month.
Who's working that?
That is Bohannon, Houston. And they're actually performing all of the design for the NMDOT projects. The next project was the Cree Meadows Trail. That design has been completed. Our purchasing department, working with Bohannon, is trying to finalize the bid documents with the Department of Transportation. That project, I would anticipate that it's bid out at some point during this month, with the possible construction starting in April of this year. And so that's the path that's connecting the Meacham Drive sidewalks to the Links Trail near Village Hall. The third project that's working on trails is the Links Trail rehabilitation. That's currently under design as well. We did have a 30% design meeting in January that was presented to DOT. And again, we should have a 60% design completed this month. That particular project does skip a fiscal year before the construction funding is authorized. And so that the design will be completed in this year in FY 21. It'll skip 22, and then so FY 23 will be the construction, basically the repaving of the entire Links path. So moving forward for this fiscal year on that item, we'll continue working towards meeting all of our deadlines associated with the design and construction of those projects and the closeout of the Cree Meadows and the Moon Mountain trails. As funding cycles become available, we'll continue to seek funding for additional projects in the village. And then just as a note, it's not our project, but the schools did go out for RFP for an engineer for their Safe Routes to Schools projects as well.
How would that play in? Could tie into possibly what we're doing and.
Yes, so their project that they applied for and were awarded funding was to build a path from the middle school side of the road along their property, crossing the 4-way intersection there of Hull Road, tying into White Mountain.
So it's between schools, not a walkway to school. It's just between them. It's
right. So it is between the 2 schools for now, but I think there's a couple of little pieces that need to be tied in, and I think those are important that those be our future applications, is to help create that final link, because there's a small portion on Hull Road that would be a real easy. The village prepared that years ago with the underground culvert. It just hasn't been paved. Either that or something through West Warrior Drive tying into the schools, but those are going to be some important tie-ins that we're going to have to look at. And then you could ride from Meacham Drive all the way to all the schools.
Wasn't the original plan to go from the schools, come back along the base of the mountain to Hull, so then you just hop across Hull and you're at White Mountain?
That is the plan. I'm sorry if I didn't describe it correctly, but that is the plan.
That is the plan, okay. Because there's that access road we have for the well that they were going to come in behind that house?
I'm sorry. It's on the other side of the road, and it's not from the high school. It is from the mid school.
It's going to be on the middle school?
Yes.
School side
So it'll be on the middle school side, but it does follow Warrior Drive, hop across Hull, and tie into the school. But that's where there is a small section that I'm not sure how it's gonna tie into the existing, trails.
Because there was a trail that was built over in that bog area.
Yep.
And it's just
Grown up
and the little bridges that were built have
rotted.
rotted away and it's,
The trail right there with the middle school, because they had all those kiosks or the wooden stands.
Right.
That I guess had information.
but it gets a lot of moisture between the middle school and Hull. So that's why I was thinking, the one plan at one point was to go to the high school side of the road, and get away from that water.
The good thing that I like about the DOT process, it's federal funds and they're pretty, they're high level of engineering required, and it's reviewed multiple times with all their experts, and they really do come up with very thorough plans. That's a good thing about having to follow that process. If they do not allow you to deviate from it whatsoever.
So I see it as it coming on the north side of Warrior Drive to Hull Road, and then hopping over right there, and then build the paving along Hull Road to White Mountain, correct?
That would be.
That's that little spot that we're talking about. Okay.
Rodney,
I think I was trying to divert to go straight across on Warrior, straight across on Hull Road to West Warrior, which takes you to Kids Connection, and tie in right there. Because we were talking about trying to do traffic control or doing a continuous right-hand turn right there on White Mountain and Hull. But I remember that's where Clint said, no, we couldn't, because they were applying for this grant and designating that as the safe way to, or safe pathway to school. Now, again, trying to convince, well, let's just move it over there so we could alleviate all that traffic, especially once you get somebody making a left turn, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, you're waiting there for a while before you can make the right turn onto Hull. So I don't know if the school might consider bringing that a little bit more so we could continue with that right-hand turn there on their property, their new property that they have there in the bog as far as the trail design.
So, unfortunately, whenever you make the initial plan on your application, that's what you're tied to.
Okay.
And so that's why I think it's important to not only follow up with Councilor Coughlin's thought of establishing those meetings with the school again, but we can have those discussions. We did try to work with the schools to develop that wetlands in that area, and we were wanting the DOT to actually construct that portion of the trail, but unfortunately that project fell through. We were going to continue on the West Warrior, like you're saying, tying into Kids Connection. Fortunately that fell through, but it doesn't keep us from applying for future projects. And I think it would be important to have both of those options.
Right.
Possibly a third option is going south on Hull Road, tying into Ovella Estes along that way as well. So,
Yeah.
Rodney, will you be able to at some point extend that to get to Moon Mountain on that back road to the well? And we've got access that way.
depending on the direction of the governing body, I think that was discussed at one point, and we chose not to move forward with that. I still think it's an option, but.
Well, you could have the equestrians park at White Mountain and use that to get to White Mountain.
And, yeah, I mean, there's still the option of doing that very thing and placing the trail on the south side of the road that ties into Moon Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different options. Again, one of the items that I didn't specifically state, but it's part of the RFP for the master planning, is a trails master plan. That'll also be, a project that I hope to select funding for, but I think we could, further identify possible projects through that trails master planning process. There's a lot of funds that potentially tied into master plans that would just give us, clarify our ideas and potential projects. It just depends what, is funded.
And Rodney, correct me if I'm wrong, but having the master plan in place also helps with getting those funds?
It does, absolutely.
Got everything ready to go?
Yeah.
A lot of these grant applications, they require you to provide either a comprehensive plan or a master plan that has been completed. They want to know that has been done. And so it does absolutely help, and it gives you a better grade on your project with the DOT funding, the Land and Water Conservation Fund, Equity Fund, all of those request backup documentation. They don't just want you to say you just came up with the idea and put it on a list. They want it to have some support.
And so what does this outdoor money look like that's coming?
I'm not sure how they're exactly going to structure that, but some of the information that I saw is that they had put in a pretty substantial request for funding, that outdoor department. It was like 25 million. And so, we'd applied for projects in the past when they barely had any funding, and
They didn't last year. I mean, I know that Navi said she wanted to fund one of ours, but she had $0. And then when we were looking at the business incubator and a few of those other things, so.
Right, I think their funding and the projects that they did funded were a lot smaller projects. I hope with this funding increase that it'll open up access to some bigger projects. The only one the one that we did was a Two Rivers Park. We did some fish habitat in that area. That was for $50,000 a couple fiscal years ago. But between the states and the Land and Water Conservation Funds, I hope that, having all these projects either planned or that we'll be able to receive some of that funding.
Okay. And I think, because I know I was just looking at the tourism stuff, they mentioned that outdoor. So maybe it's tied to tourism somehow, or.
It is tied to the tourism, the economic development department. They're, what I've read, that they really want to invest in that because, they as well saw how it impacted the state this past year and want to keep moving forward on that. Any other questions regarding that action or that tactical plan item? Our item number 5 is again still moving forward on quality parks and recreation opportunities are available. The action item for this past fiscal year was develop a wayfinding plan that provides direction to all Ruidoso's recreation resources. And progress that was made during the year is we did work with the village's tourism department to put our facilities on their visitor widget. And so whether it's events or our parks, you can find that information on their visitor widget. And I think it's important to as you move forward to include it on all different platforms, not only the widget, but, keep our website updated. We do promote them throughout the year on our department's social media, whether it's Instagram and Facebook, but the village's tourism department shares that information as well. We also, that type of information on the widget is also provided at the digital kiosk that we talk about, the one here in the convention center, the one in Midtown. Again, if you're looking at events or things to do, our recreation and outdoor infrastructure is on that widget.
Who updates that?
Justin Hoffman. Some more wayfinding that was completed, progress during this last year is as we completed the equestrian parking area at Grindstone, we worked with Jill Andrews and her group to provide additional signage, not only on the roadway, but on the trails themselves. And she actually fundraised with her group. I think they raised over $4,000 that we applied towards signage related to the equestrian improvements. So moving forward, for next fiscal year, we want to keep improving our infrastructure, including that information on all these widgets and websites. And we actually, the map the one that kind of has it's a map of Ruidoso, and it has the little, kind of like cartoony locations of lodging, and we added our outdoor recreation to that map as well. We also added we added little fish designating public fishing areas throughout Ruidoso on that map as well. So we'll keep forward and trying to add that type of information. That way the public is aware of what we have to offer. Because it is amazing the number of visitors we get to our office who still, they have so many questions on camping, on fishing, a lot of people don't even know the lake is there. So it's important for us to have that information. Matter of fact, I share the widget with them. I tell them all I can, but I said, look at this app. It has everything you need to know, and I think we need to promote that more. Again, we'll keep moving forward this next year as we develop the Alto property, the Ruidoso Winter Park, and updating all that information, and just keep moving forward with updating that and adding it to create awareness for our visitors.
Rodney, I've already been getting questions from some people regarding the summer. We don't know what's going to happen this summer yet, but if we learned from last year, we get overwhelmed at the parks. If camping is allowed in our campground, do we have a plan for parking, since we utilize that heavily for excess parking there, and to be able to control the crowds so we don't get overwhelmed and have issues like we did last year?
So that is one of the initial recommendations that Groundwork Studios had shared with us, is not to utilize the campground as a campground any longer. If you weigh the benefits of parking versus a campground, the benefits of parking outweigh the campground by far. There's only 28 total sites for camping. And so, there could be potentially, groups of 28 individuals.
Rodney, if I'm not mistaken, it's not to get away with the campgrounds. They'll still be able to do day camping and things like that on the improved sites. But the area would be used more for parking as opposed to overnight camping.
That is correct. It'll be a modification. So all of the improvements that we have put into there, they'll still be utilized, probably more than what it had been. So, of course, you have the restrooms, you have all of the showers, all of the individual sites. A recommendation is to convert them to a day-use picnic area. And so, again, nothing that was built out there would essentially, go to waste. The use for parking does minimize, or I'll say minimize the issues of having the need to park elsewhere. We can park them all on site. Also, what I would like to do to try to minimize the issues and not be caught off guard is I want to develop some type of trigger points that, right now in my mind, I'm thinking, May through September are definitely, we're going to need the parking, the reservations, without a doubt, because otherwise I believe we'll be overwhelmed. But that very well could happen in March and April. Start having these weekends where it's really nice weather. We're already talking the lower parking this past weekend was full. Half the upper parking was half full. So, but I think we need to develop some trigger points that let us know that, hey, we're experiencing high traffic on weekends in April. Maybe we ought to consider implementing that system earlier, rather than not having anyone in attendance and then being inundated with traffic and then having them park on the sides of the roads. The other thing that I believe is going to be a recommendation is trying to have the host site someone in place year round. They may not necessarily be a camp host, but they can help with the evening issues and educating people as they're at the lake itself. Because there's, again, our staff typically will work, through the summer 8 to 5. Well, it doesn't get dark till, 9. So there's still those hours that we do need some type of presence there. So I think utilizing that host site will be important as well.
It's a long ways away from the lake.
It is, but.
Well, see, again, have we talked to your Parks and Rec people about this, because we went through a lot of meetings and whatever about the dry campsites, the overnight camping, and now then day camping is called a picnic.
Yeah.
And so we put money into those places for the tents to be set up, and then we talk about turning that into additional parking. Are we going to overload Grindstone Lake itself? I think we need to figure out what we want our capacity to be, and then your trigger points that come in say, okay, we're stopping, once our parking lot's full at the main lake. And then it's hard for me to believe after all the meetings and everything that we had that we missed the idea of camping, that now then we're just pushing it to the side and moving forward. So anyway, I just want to make sure that your Parks and Rec group board is up to date on what we're doing, and then give us the ideas of the changes or whatever, because we definitely want to be able to utilize it for the best purposes for the experience and all that, and I don't know if cramming more people down at Grindstone is going to make anybody happy. And that was one of the things that you pointed out before, was that we limited it, and at least the folks that were there had a great experience. So
I agree, and I think that's the important part of that master plan is the recommendations come from that planning process. I have shared the initial recommendations with the Parks Commission at their previous meeting. Again, they will be presented to them as well as to also have that the commission provide a recommendation to the governing body as well regarding that master plan.
Council, before we move on, if we're completed with this item.
Yeah.
Well, I just can't see the red. Mayor, Council, before we move on, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about the radio station that is under Rodney's department, and you had some additional comments yesterday, Mayor, that I think are important that we make sure we work into Rodney's strategic plan. So you want to kind of rehash your discussion on additional marketing for that facility, or?
you're going to have to remind me what conversation I was talking about. I don't remember.
We're talking about the radio station, and you made a comment that we really need to up the marketing to make it an iconic communication center.
We talked to so many different people that we can't seem to get information to. And so one of the things, like on the fires that we had the last couple this week, people were calling me right and left, and we really didn't have a good outlet for information until we finally posted it on Facebook. Well, as we've learned through this pandemic, a lot of people don't have smartphones and that. But so we really want to market the radio station that people can turn to 1490, and that we do have a loop that's updated daily. Well, if we have something that we can break in and have a recorded message that plays on every hour or every quarter hour or whatever, that people can tune in and get that information, and just spend a little more time and money on marketing it. And I've gotten quite a few requests on when we're ready to do that, people would like to advertise. And then that takes somebody that does that. And so with your department, Jasmine's doing a great job there, but, there she is. That I don't think she wants to be, she may not be, I'm not going to speak for her, but we need to look at some sort of marketing, market the radio station and get the information that's out there, that you may listen to XM, you may be listening to your internet radio, but how can we get people to turn that radio station on or know to go, for weather updates? Because they get it wrong a lot of times here, and Potter does a pretty good idea of hitting it pretty well on the head. And then if there's a change, like the other day, they said the storm from the south had moved up and that we were going to get it, and people were experienced about that. And then tying into the ski report, talked to Ken a little bit about it, but just getting it where it's more active daily, because the stuff that we've got on there is good content, but just getting people used to tuning in the morning to listening to it, and then knowing that it's repeated every 15 or 30 minutes so they can get it, but just marketing it better.
Mayor, so that improvement plan or tactical plans on page 75.
Okay.
So I believe that's our last presentation that we hadn't gone through that. We kind of skipped over that through the process.
Mayor and councilors, I would like for Jasmine to present the KRUI plan. She's been really heavily involved with that, but I want to apologize that we have been slow moving forward with the marketing. I couldn't agree more with everything you've said. We need to create that awareness that it's there. I have lots of excuses that things were closed down, but as we move forward and the community opens back up, we will work with all the businesses in Ruidoso to get their information out there, let people know that it is a place for them to share their information with visitors and locals, and hopefully that all of the things that you mentioned, it will be part of our plan to try to create that awareness. But I'll let Jasmine.
Well, and the exposure when we get in the new building will really help the profile.
Yeah.
And, like some of the spotlights that you've done with different business people, to open it up to every Tom, Dick, and candle shop and T-shirt shop in the deal, to give everybody a chance to come on the radio for one day,
Yes.
And if I could interrupt one last time, I think, so the things that we have talked about, and I talked about earlier with the convention center, with the radio, with the parks department and our events, and, in relationship to the tourism department, that's why I feel that having assistant director position and us really developing that true relationship amongst all those departments, because they're all connected, every one of them. I mean, if you're having a convention center here, the tourism needs to promote it. It needs to be on the radio. People who are hosting it need to be able to get on there and talk about it. And so that's why I really think that we're headed in the right direction of having these relationships among all those departments in particular, and including the community development with Sam.
Good point.
So.
Just before you start,
Yeah.
With us marketing, and once we get our building up and going, banks, those kinds of people, because it is a community radio, they're liable to want to pay a little bit of money to put their
Sponsorships, they call them.
absolutely.
Definitely.
So, that's just one of those things, because it is our radio station. They're liable to want to go ahead and run that those things.
They've already said they would, but we just need to have more exposure. And people tend to tune in to listen to see if you're running their ad or not, so.
Well, and I know we're busy, but I would argue that now is the time to start doing that stuff rather than later, because when we get to the point that we're able to reopen stuff, Jasmine and her crew are going to be swamped with all kinds of events that they're planning and executing and so forth. And now is the time to wait until then and then try and get a marketing plan, get everything going. And the easy way to drive people to the radio station, Mayor, stop answering your phone, change your voicemail to, hey, if you're calling with a question, turn into KRUI. And because as long as it's easy, if they can call, you're going to answer, you're going to go, well, it's not, okay, here's the answer. They're going to keep calling you.
Good point. My wife would.
That's a great idea.
Okay, we'll let you roll now. Try not to interrupt you anymore.
Oh, no, you're fine. Good morning, Mayor and Council. So, we will go over the marketing. It is one of our big goals for the upcoming year. But we'll go ahead and start with the first goal on our tactical plan, and that, oh, sorry, my screen just flipped, and I can't read sideways.
Is that page 77?
Yes, or 75. Okay.
I don't have the goals on 75, I don't think, is it? Is it? Oh, yeah, it is.
Does Sam have it pulled up? Yes. Okay. So the first one is kind of, it's part of this year's, which was establish new direction, funding, and programming to operate the municipal community radio station. So we definitely have made a lot of progress on that. We've tried to provide local programming, raising awareness of local government topics, outdoor experiences, history, and projects and happenings around Ruidoso. We've also included local news, weather, community services, and PSAs that are relevant to our residents and visitors. We've, again, done a lot of progress since we were able to since we started the project back in April. We signed on with the local radio network as our programming, which provides the soft adult contemporary format. We've done, well, with the help of Mr. Cook, Jeff, Greg, we've done a lot of the research for the FCC regulations. Jeff has built a couple of the computers needed. We've also built out the temporary studio. That is what we're currently operating out of. We've had insurance coverages for the tower. We've worked through a lot of the paperwork for the lease of the tower and the property. We've also hired our sound engineer, which was a huge project, or part of the puzzle, because without Greg, I don't think we could be operating. We also were able to develop a media kit and had our resolution fees adopted so that we could offer something to start off on for our advertising sales. We did also create a consistent programming schedule. So we have 6 days a week, every morning, we've got something going on the radio. And we also acquired the emergency alert system box, and we have worked with the New Mexico Department of Transportation to put up some signage for us to include. And we've also started the construction of the permanent studio as of this month. That has started over at the Wingfield house.
Jazz, you said signage, is it up already?
I believe so, yes.
Where are they at? At the edge of town or I just haven't seen them.
So,
Yes.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As you approach town from all different areas, so coming in from Mescalero, coming in from the Downs, coming in up Angus, coming in near the Gavilan Canyon and 48 intersection, further out at the 8 Mile crossing as you're leaving Carrizozo, coming in, 380 and Lincoln.
Now, can they get reception in all those areas?
It is, so I've kind of monitored it as I drive around, because we've had that question, depending on the time of the day. And I don't know exactly how AM works, but depending, seems that, daytime and nighttime, I don't know what the regulations are, but it's a little different.
Almost all the way to Carrizozo, and it got better, and a Capitan, and then I got the other way, and by the time I leave the Downs, I can't hear it, so I know it's strange, but.
And see, I can't get it, like in my house, if I have the radio on, I can't find 1490, but I can on my phone and then out in my car. So I don't understand that.
Crappy radio in your house.
Well, and that's another reason why we are pushing for, and it'll come up in our marketing plans, is for a website that can host. Right now, we do have a streaming website that folks can stream online. So if you were at home, you could tune in on your computer or tablet or anything like that. But it is a strange website, because right now we don't have a 1490.com or anything like that, which we have taken over the domain, and we're working with Carrie and the agency to kind of build that out, and we'll go over that a little bit in one of the goals. But so for 2021, obviously the completion of the new permanent building for the studio is one of our priorities, and becoming the spot for local updates and information is really a big goal. The next goal was to create organization within the radio station and assign roles, set up possible internships with local college and schools. And this is really to ensure the responsibilities and tasks are covered for the operation and the growth of the station. We want to make sure that if Greg gets sick for any reason, someone can hop in and run the boards. Jeff and I have kind of both been somewhat, shadowed him on that, but we'd like to get, further training so that we could feel confident in being able to go in during, any recording and be able to produce it or help, keep the station on air. So we've also, some of that is also working. So right now, one of our programs is called Mountain Air, and we work with the ENMU, the local college here, and they have their own programming that runs. So we've kind of been in discussion with them about adding an internship and working with their students. That would also really just kind of help build our growth if we had students that were learning how to operate radio who were interested in that, and then possibly, having that built into a, work opportunity as the station grows. And so that would be a big goal for 2021 under that one. Do we have any questions on that goal for the station? Okay. I'll move on to the next one. So the next goal is really about our tower and having proper maintenance done to the radio tower to prolong its lifetime and ensure that we remain on air. So, and I think it's been mentioned as the gift that keeps on giving, but that tower has needed some work for quite some time now. And we have been able to get Pace Audio out there to do, to kind of review it and see what exactly needs to be done. So that is a big goal for 2021, is to see, it's to make sure that we can have that money allocated for that at some point, so that we can make sure that it doesn't, fall over or anything and takes us off air. So really kind of looking at that as a big goal for future, to just maintain that tower.
Where is that tower?
Downs.
It's in the Downs.
Mayor, one of the things I think we need to evaluate is as we look at these towers and even the cell tower leases that we have, if there's opportunity to place additional repeaters on those and do some cohabitation. I know that we're getting into the discussion about building another tower, there at the Horton complex for the communication center. So I think we need, a sound engineer or whoever's the correct person to look at all these towers and see strategically if we can enhance, the radio station and communication opportunities. So
That's a good idea. But I'm concerned about the tower, the statement in here, that somewhere in here that Pace Audio says that an ice storm could bring it down. Pace stated that an ice storm could bring down the tower. I wouldn't want that to happen.
Right.
So I think we need to make that a priority.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And it's kind of up behind the spaghetti flats or the track over there.
Mm-hmm.
you would think you'd have better reception going past the Downs with it.
Exactly. That's why I get confused, but I'm easily confused, so.
All right, so the next goal is to create brand awareness and build audiences as well as clients and sponsors, and become Ruidoso's go-to platform for local updates and information. And so we actually, we were able to meet with the agency last week and kind of go over some of our goals for increasing the marketing. We do have a Facebook page now specifically for KRUI, we'll be working on a budget specifically for marketing for the KRUI, including some social media campaigns and sponsored ads for the radio station. And like I mentioned earlier, the domain and website has been, and it is now under Carrie. So we've talked about building out a website to where folks can go to, not only to find all of our programming from our Monday through our Saturday programs and catch up on what they might have missed. They'll also be able to listen to any PSAs that are running and also find the advertising and the media buying information. So if they're interested in running an ad or, buying some ad space or sponsoring one of the programs, all of that information will be on the website with contact information, and they'll be able to just call or send an email and get, their ads running. We've had a few clients throughout, the last few months, and some of them will continue. ENMU actually, in fact, does sponsor their program. So we do receive money to kind of cover their program that runs every Tuesday. Yes. So that is a big one. We have also, part of the marketing is to increase our clients and ads. So we really do want to reach out to locals who are interested. And again, I think Susan mentioned is that we are a local community, and the folks that like banks and, different advertisers might want who are listening, hopefully, to the radio station. And of course, using social media to really increase the awareness for that. And our final goal is the budget. So of course, all of it ties into kind of the budget and working with the finance department, to kind of make sure that we can cover all these costs. And we did for one of our goals, we had talked early on about also tapping into the lodgers tax board because, it's marketing some of the events. I briefly talked with Justin, and he was concerned that there were certain criteria being with how far the radio reaches and what kind of funds that lodgers is allowed to be used for. Right. But I did also speak with Judy, and she was going to review that because there is a portion that is possibly available that doesn't have to hit that criteria per se. So there is a possibility, and I'd like to kind of keep that on the table as possibly using the lodgers tax fund to help kind of, use that as marketing funds for the events that they're using through lodgers tax. And
Mayor Council, in both other communities that I worked in, lodgers tax did support the local radio stations because they are tourist-related attractions and, provide for tourists as well, for weather, PSAs, publications of activities that are ongoing, so.
It just probably has to be coded different.
Yes.
Because when it talks about radio advertising, it's 50-mile radius outside, that you have to spend the money on. And so that may be what Justin's thinking about, but surely there's classification in there that it could be picked up, so.
I don't know where Justin's getting a 50-mile radius, but it just talks about.
It's always been
tourist
standard.
attraction.
When I was on it 10 years ago,
Was
you
it
could
the
not
local?
spend, the deal was to get people to come in, so what good does it do to advertise locally? You're advertising in other communities to bring them in. That's where we always had it.
But there's a small percentage of those funds that can be spent that is that exception, I think, that Judy's talking about.
And I believe Judy's on.
I'm just saying that may be a local option that's written into our lodgers tax. I haven't seen that.
Mayor, councilors, in the statute, there's no designation that it has to be so many miles outside of your jurisdiction. All the statute says is that we have to use 40% on promotion and advertising or heads and beds kind of promotion, and the other 60 can be used on non-promotional items such as operations, maintenance of tourist-related facility. So under my definition, the radio station would qualify as a tourist-related operation, so we could use that money towards it, so.
Well, we need to look at our local stuff to make sure we hadn't put that in there, because that was hammered into us from the very beginning. And when people bring in their receipts for their advertising and marketing, we turn down people in the years past because they didn't spend it in the designated radius. So I just want to make sure we didn't have that in there somewhere. So I don't know if I was just told and we did it because that's what we were told, or.
And Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, some of the stuff that they have approved as of recent has been spent on local type of means of advertising and whatnot. So we'll definitely do a review on that and see what's occurring.
Because I know we have had some things we did in the past that we found out we weren't operating procedurally correct. So we might not hurt to get a definition so the whole Lodgers Tax Committee and Team Tourism and everybody understands it.
I pulled up our lodgers tax resolution.
We can review that at a later time, Sam. And come back with a recommendation and a report.
Jasmine, how do you go on and get archived? I get a lot of questions about archive programs. How do you do that?
So right now, we have on demand available on that streaming website. However, it only archives, I believe, up to 2 weeks. After that, it doesn't keep it on demand. So that is something, when we build out the website, we will have them all archived. So, and it doesn't mean they're lost. We still have the files at the station. So once we do get the website, we can upload all of the programming we've recorded.
And so on the live stream, it shows archive.
Yeah, you go to the left and there's like little lines. You click on it and it'll say on demand or archived
Yes.
or whatever, and you go down and click them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And of course, we invite you all to join us on the radio station. I know a few of you have already been on, especially on Mondays, but we also have the outdoor hour and village volume. So if you're ever interested in, getting on the radio, just let us know. We'd be happy to have you.
You're doing a great job, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they've got that on there, and it works pretty good because I get a lot of comments from people that call me or send me emails that listen in Texas and Oklahoma, a lot of them. And
Yeah, and it's really exciting, I think, because right now we do have an online platform where we are keeping the archives for the outdoor hour and the village volume. But there's some really, our local legends, our mountain air. Some of those episodes, I get to listen to them, because they come through me, but there's some really awesome stories out there and information. So I really want to make sure that it's all available.
Mayor, that might help a 50-mile radius deal with the web.
Mayor, one of the other items that I want to go back to real quick, it's part of the Parks Department as well, is just, I know that after the meeting, there was some discussion about the analytical software that we have. So I believe we are going to be adding an item, is that correct, Ron? To the regular agenda we've asked Samantha to draft a policy to produce some procedures, policy and procedures and internal controls on how the analytical software would be utilized.
and who has access, and if we want to adopt licensing additional people,
Yes.
that'd be considered.
So Ron, is that correct? Are we adding that item to the regular
I
meeting?
haven't seen the item yet, but
Samantha?
she has it prepared, we can sure add it on there.
I am still working on it. Ron is there time to add it to the agenda?
If we can get it in by at least tomorrow.
Oh, okay, absolutely. I had a question. Is this going to be in the form of resolution, or what format do I put this information in?
My recommendation would be a resolution.
Okay. I can get that done.
And then, Mayor, we also had some conversation and an opportunity on an additional item with Eric Boyda. And that's regard to the asset management plan that came out in conversation in the Utilities Committee yesterday. And so there's a request to add an additional item to the agenda for asset management. Are you on there, Eric? Eric?
He had another meeting, NMAD meeting that he was gonna step away from, but I can explain, if I need to explain it. We do have it already on the agenda as a regular item. And it's just having the company that assisted the village on the asset management plan would be helping with the implementation process also. And I think there was like $34,000 that's remaining on that. But it is on the as a regular item on the agenda.
So that was a question that came up in the Utilities Committee meeting yesterday. Correct, Councilor Chairman Cornelius?
It was, but if you go click on it, don't make the mistake of printing it out like I did. They'd be late to the meeting.
And that's just a continuation.
Is that, Mayor, is that okay with you that we add that item?
Absolutely, I think so. Impressive.
And he did have that money left over in the budget he was wanting to do some other things with.
That's correct.
Mayor, Council, before we move on, Ron, is there any additional items under public hearings or anything that we're going to be adding next week?
Mayor, members of the council, for the regular meeting, we will have on the consent items, we have the approval of the governing body minutes for the regular meeting that was scheduled on January 12th, special meeting on the 26th. We'll have the ratification and adoption of resolution that was on the real property, that was with the Brophy property that the mayor was finalizing. We have a ratification, that's the EMS Fund Act, that was from Chief Thetford. We have a ratification, this is a change order one with White Sands, was initiated from the Pace Audio, providing some AV boxes on the foundation of 5 locations within the Village Hall to eliminate any type of wiring that's just going to be on the ground or whatnot. It's be for the 4 conference rooms, and then where the new
reception area?
The reception area is for customers coming in. Approval of this just came in also. This was late on Friday. This was the approval of the second state grants and aid from the library. We already had approved the first one, and this is the second amount. We have this as a consent item. We can also always put this as a regular one. I think the mayor did received an email from Diane at the library, but we need, before we initiate or approve the grant agreement, we wanted to present this to council, and that was for an additional amount for the state grants and aid, the second half, for $7,528.95. And then we have 2 requests of public hearing on March 9th, and this is on the adoption of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan. And then we have another request to schedule a public hearing on March 9th. This is the preliminary development to plan, operate outdoor recreation activity within a 5-acre tract known as the James Townsend Tract. And then we have a presentation from Matt Ingram, the Ruidoso Midtown Association. We have the introduction of new village employees. We have reports from village departments. And then we have an update from Samantha on the Town and Country subdivision, the CDBG project. And then the final on the regular item is discussion. This is what Eric's proposing on utilizing the available funds. And we may have another resolution This is on another property acquisition, allowing the mayor to sign the agreements. And then one more ratification of a resolution that we're working with the mayor on, and this is on the oil and gas leases regarding what the president has done with the oil and gas leases in the state of New Mexico, so in the American.
Yeah, just briefly, that it could affect our budget severely, and I just want us to have a discussion about it. What you see, or if you think that we'll be somewhat immune to it, it's better to be planning on it, because seemed in hindsight, we did the right thing with the budget cutting back in March or last year. And so to be aware of what's going on because of the amount of jobs that we've already lost, they're projecting 62,000 jobs will be lost in New Mexico in oil and gas.
Mr. Mayor, was this specifically targeting those areas that are on public lands for drilling?
Yes, in New Mexico, the majority of the property is public lands. And so, like Texas is private property. And so I talked to several oil executives, Contra Oil and several different ones, big ones, that they're already planning on moving because it was a 90-day and then it was moved to a year. And so they said they're not going to just sit on their hands, they'll move.
So it'll basically be a cap and go then?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yep.
There is my understanding that some of those companies leased a bunch of stuff in the last year or two.
Yeah.
And haven't drilled it, so there's some potential, I don't know how far out that goes, but.
Well, and that's some of the things that, I like to get the definitions on what all of this means. Because this gentleman said they'd already sent out 205 pink slips, and they were, in Carlsbad and those different areas. Because I was excited that the price of oil was moving up a little, and he said, well, it's a little too late. We're already making plans to leave. We've dealt with this before. And so, but I'd like to find out really what all of it does mean to us.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, will also have some closed session items with that, if we have any property acquisitions or any pending litigation and personnel action matters, so.
Okay. And it'd be nice if we could find someone that has oil and gas related that could speak to what exactly the terms of that would be.
Mayor, would you like us to reach out to the Oil and Gas Commission or Committee or Oversight, or whatever it's called?
Yeah, to let us know what that.
Association, or there's a organization statewide that represents oil and gas. We'll try to find out who that is and see if they're available for a presentation.
That would be nice, because some of it that I found is kind of a knee-jerk reaction, that people are, just saying it even though they work for these companies, they're still employed. But, just what are the real facts, and does it have a strong possibility of having a big impact or not? So.
Tim, let me know, because one of my board members is the president of a oil production company, and he's worked under several presidential administrations on oil and gas issues. I can reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to log in if you can't get somebody from the oil and gas.
I think they would be perfect. I think I know you're talking about, but that would be.
Whatever the mayor prefers.
I mean, if you can get him to do that, I think that would be, if he's up to date and feels comfortable doing it, we'll just tag him in on a Zoom.
Okay. I'll talk to you about it later.
Yeah, if he's willing to give us his insight.
Oh, he's always willing to give his opinions. Okay. But he's well spoken. I mean, he's very, here, matter of fact, here it is.
Mayor, with that concludes all our recommendations under the workshop that will move to the regular items.
Okay.
So last item is your executive session.
All right. Does anyone have any other comments, questions before we move? Okay, I'd like a motion to move into closed session, please.
Mr. Mayor, move that we move into executive session for discussion subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which the Village of Ruidoso is or may become a participant, citing State Statute 1015-1H7 New Mexico Statutory Authority, 1978.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Cornelius? Roll call, please.
And that was, Counselor Salas was the second, correct? Counselor Cornelius? Okay. Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius?
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Salas?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
And also, we're going to call Zach.
Judy, are you still there?
Judy.